Well, good afternoon, church. Is this in the afternoon or is
No,
it in the morning? I realized after I said
yeah, it'll be in the morning at 7.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there we go. Well, good morning, church. My name's Joseph Gibson. I'm one of the delegates, and I have a little Bible study that I want to share with you. We're going to look at Psalms 19. And the way that I want to do things this week is a little bit different. So, normally you kind of do a Bible study and you might read like a little bit of the passage and then talk about it and then read a little more and talk about it. Or sometimes you'll read the whole section and then talk about it. I'm going to kind of flip that upside down. So, what I want to do is give a nice, kind of careful, detailed setting of the stage for our passage. So, I'm just going to talk through a few points. And then after that, we'll turn and we'll look at the passage at the end. And I hope that what I have to say will kind of shed some light on this passage and will enable us to hear what God wants to speak and say to us. So to kind of begin by setting the stage, let's talk about a specific word, and that word is cosmos. Now, I don't know exactly what you think when you hear that word. Maybe you think of Carl Sagan and his TV series that he had a number of years ago called the Cosmos, or maybe you start picturing something like the Milky Way or the solar system. This word is one of the oldest words in the English language. It is a very, very old word, and it actually goes back to the Greek. It's at least 2,600 years old. And in the Greek, it had these ideas of order and beauty. And for the Greeks, those were connected together. They were intimately wed and tied to each other, this idea of order and beauty. And that was represented in this word cosmos. And maybe it would be helpful if we think of something like a flower arrangement, right? Like if I took a whole bunch of flowers and just grabbed them at random and didn't pay any attention to their length or to how they were ordered, and then just grabbed a vase and shoved them in there and had some of the flowers sideways or upside down or all sorts of different ways, it probably wouldn't turn out very nice, right? A tremendous amount of the beauty from a flower arrangement comes from the arrangement itself. It comes from the order. The order is part of what makes it look beautiful. Or maybe you've looked in a cupboard or in your workshop or in a room and you've noticed how out of order everything was, what a mess everything was. And so you go and you straighten things up and you put everything in its place and you bring order to the situation. And then kind of what do you do at the end? You stand back and you look at it and you admire how good it looks. You admire its beauty. And so those are kind of pictures where we start to see for us that there is this deep connection between order and beauty. And the Greeks recognized that probably the biggest picture of this wedding between order and beauty was the cosmos, was the universe at large. And really all we have to do is spend a little time in nature, go out on a hike, go look at a sunset or a sunrise. Look at a mountain range, look up at the night sky, and you'll see that there's this beautiful order that exists in nature. And here I just want to real quickly read a little quote from Plato. He says, "Heaven and earth are held together by communion and friendship, by orderliness, temperance, and justice. And that is the reason, my friend, that they call the whole of this world by the name of order," that's cosmos, "not of disorder or misrule." And kind of as a quick little side note here, it was really a Christian who had a deep delight in God and his sovereignty and reverence for this incredible beauty and order that God had put into the world that started the scientific revolution. His name was Johann Kepler, and he was one of the people that did a tremendous amount of work in the early sciences. And that was all based off of the systematic investigation of the order the laws of nature that God had put in place, the ones that he had ordained. Now that we've kind of talked about nature a little bit, the thing is that what's true of this cosmos, the universe being beautifully ordered and ordained by God, is also true of human life. It's true of people and of individuals. And so God has an ordering. He has a law for man. And so just like stars, planets, waterfalls, flowers, all of these things display their beauty and harmony with God's order. So true. So it's also the case that mankind finds life and fullness and beauty and satisfaction in the laws, the order that God has established for man. He's given mankind a place, and he's given them rules, a sort of order, a place for them in terms of how to interact with each other and how to interact with God. Now, one of the reasons that this is important to talk about and to point out is because there's been a great lie that has been propagated for a very long time. And the great lie has to do with this idea that morality, that the human order that God has created consists of drab and dreary and unfortunate things that we just have to do. Right? They're not fun. They're not enjoyable. It would be better for us in some sort of sense if we could work outside of this order. And that is a tremendous lie. And if you think about what happens in Genesis, that's the lie that Satan tells Adam and Eve, right? He started this lie and kind of saying that God's order was not good, but that it was something that was oppressive. Right? It was something that was meant to keep man from being all that he could be, and that man's ideal place in the world rested outside of God's order. And that if man would just exert himself and order things for himself, then he would find fullness and life outside of God's own rule. And it's really because humans have tried to do that, because we've rejected God's cosmos, because we've rejected his beautiful and perfect ordering of life in the world, that we have this sad and unfortunate unfolding of human history, a history that's filled with war, oppression, racism, hatred, greed, pride, and sadly, there's just so much more that we could talk about, selfishness. And the great need for humans then lies in the fact that we need to have a reordering take place in our lives and in our hearts and in our souls. We need to be restored from our misshapenness, our being out of order with the way God has created us and intended for us to function. And with all of these things in mind, let's turn to Psalm 19. And I'm just going to kind of read through it, and I'll make a few little comments here or there. It starts off in verse 1. The heavens are telling the glory of God, and the firmament proclaims his handiwork. You see, the psalmist starts out, just like in our discussion about this incredible beauty and order that's instilled in nature. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night declares knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words. Their voice is not heard. Yet their voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. Right? This beautiful picture of the stars, of nature, of how God has set things. It doesn't speak in terms of human language, in a voice or in words that we can hear with our ears, but it's something that we can sense with our hearts and we can perceive with our minds. And he goes on, in the heavens, he has set a tent for the sun, which comes out like a bridegroom from his wedding canopy, and like a strong man runs its course with joy. Its rising is from the end of the heavens, and its circuit to the end of them, and nothing is hid from its heat. The law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. We might kind of like pump the brakes here and say, wait a minute, why do we have like these first 6 verses that are all so focused on nature? And then this sudden transition to the law of the Lord. And the reason is because the psalmist is kind of like what we were talking about in that discussion, recognizing the beauty of God's ordering of his cosmos for nature as a whole, and then also for man. That's what the law is about. It's about God's perfect ordering for mankind, and how that's where man finds his beauty and fullness in life. So if we go on, the law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. The decrees of the Lord are sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is clear, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring forever. The ordinances of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, even much fine gold, sweeter also than honey, and drippings of the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is your servant warned. In keeping them there is great reward. But who can detect their errors? We see after this discussion of the beauty of nature, its perfect ordering, the beauty of God's laws, of morality, of ethics, the rules for human life, and what a wonderful thing that is, and how beautifully God has ordained those. We start to notice that there's a problem here. And the problem is that humans don't always live and act in accordance with that. And to the degree that they go against God's order, they're hurt and they're misshapen and they're out of place. They're out of God's perfect cosmos. And so the psalmist starts again this transition towards a plea for himself and for others to enter back into that cosmos, to God's proper ordering. Who can detect their errors? Clear me from hidden faults. Keep back your servant also from proud thoughts. That idea of like people trying to order and put themselves in the place of the person who determines how the world is meant to be. Keep us back from that. Do not let them have dominion over me. Then I shall be blameless and innocent of great transgression. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. I hope what we've said here has been helpful to you, and I would really encourage you to spend some time this week going through Psalm 19 and really reflecting on what it says. And with that, I thank you for your time, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you Sunday.